In this series of videos, we're going to look at the topics covered in Chapter 2, which is overview of the data mining process. The title is kind of misleading. We're going to cover, generally speaking, how to prepare data for further analysis that we will be doing in later chapters. So here are some of the topics that are covered, and some of the topics we already discussed in previous week, last week, week number 1. So I will skip some of those slides and focus on the new topics. So the core ideas in data mining are predictive analytics, so which is what this course is about, and we can consider predictive analytics as 3 different groups of topics. So classification is one where the target variable, the variable that we are trying to predict, is either binary or nominal or ordinal, okay, which is not an interval variable. So that is classification. Prediction is when the target variable is interval. So interval meaning, suppose you want to predict the price of a used car, and you have a database of used cars, and you come up with an analysis and you predict the price of the car. So that would be a case where the target is an interval variable, and that's what and when you do that, we call that prediction. On the other hand, if your target is whether you will be able to sell a used car or not, so that will be 0 or 1, so that would be like a classification. And association rules are what product will go with what. Okay, so that's an unsupervised method. Supervised method is where you have a target. Association rules is one where you do not have a target that we want to predict. And then we will look at data reduction and dimension reduction, exploration, and supervised and unsupervised. We already discussed that. Okay, supervised learning is where you have a target, and then you have training data, validation data, score data, and this is used by both classification and prediction. We again last week we talked about training, validation, and score data. So unsupervised is when you do not have a target. Again, we have already discussed this. Supervised classification is a categorical target, binary target, nominal. So like purchase, no purchase, or fraud or no fraud, in transactions, whether a customer is creditworthy or not creditworthy. So these are classification examples. So each row is a case, a customer, and each column is a variable in this data set, and the target variable is very often binary. Okay, the nominal is also possible, but in most cases it will be binary. Supervised prediction is where you have the target variable, the outcome variable, is an interval variable like sales or revenue or performance, like the example that I mentioned, the price of a used car that we want to predict. And once again, the data, you have rows of data and columns of variable, and you have a target that is interval. So taken together, the classification and prediction, that's what we call predictive analytics. So again, unsupervised association rules is an unsupervised methodology where you're trying to figure out rules that says, okay, if X was purchased, then Y will also be purchased. So here, each row will be transactions. Okay, so we have what are the different purchases a customer. So you will have a customer ID, and what are the different items the customer ID purchased, and from that you have to develop a rule. And this is one of the topics, the later topics that we will be covering towards the end of the semester. Now, data reduction and dimension reduction. Data reduction is when you have a really large data set. You have billions of records. So it's in a SaaS enterprise environment, you really don't need all of that data to make accurate predictions, accurate classification. So you may want to take a sample, and that's data reduction. And the reducing number of variables is is dimension reduction. The number of variables represents dimension. So dimension reduction is what that is. All right. And data visualization is also an unsupervised methodology. So we will talk, the next chapter will talk about data visualization. So data visualization can be a standalone topic where you do it for the purpose of exploring the data and then trying to understand what the data represents, or we can also use it for understanding the data in a analytic perspective where we want to make sure that the data is good, there are no errors and things like that. So we can use visualization for that, and we did use that in the SAS exercise where we use the explore button to look at what the variable, the summary of the variable should look like, and so on.